Anthony Grassi for D3 Ticker here at the Women Leaders in Sports National Convention. Happy to sit down for another small college conversation with Crystal Gibson, the Director of Athletics and Recreation at St. Mary's College of Maryland. Crystal, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So I feel it's only appropriate that we start with where we're at right now at Women Leaders in Sports National Convention. What has this organization meant to your personal development and your development as a leader?
Yeah, it's been a really great find for me. I didn't know it existed for a really long time, and the first time I actually attended a Women Leaders Conference, I was coaching at that time, but I was also our senior woman administrator at St. Mary's, and the NCAA put on their SWA program, and it was the first one that they had ever done because they were really trying to develop women and really understand what that role is and to really embrace it. And so I met an incredible group of women who had multiple roles on their campuses, and it coincided with the Women Leaders Convention. And there, you're just able to see so many women in so many different positions at so many institutions across the country. Obviously, I'm in Division III, and there's varying levels of how many women you're going to see in different spaces. But when you're at this conference, you understand all the complexities that happen in different areas, but everybody it's so welcoming, right? It's a great place just to come. Even if you don't feel like you're looking to have like a rah-rah experience, you can find something for you here. And I just think it's an amazing opportunity. I also love that there are more men that are coming now as well, because they're really able to sit in the same rooms and understand what it feels like to be in a space where you're not necessarily the majority. And hear those conversations. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, having that sense of community, whether you sought it out maybe or not, is and having access to it on a regular basis, I imagine, has been very helpful.
Absolutely.
You mentioned kind of that transitionary period from basketball coach when you started becoming. I'm interested in the transition in your career from basketball coach to associate AD at a different institution to be able to come back to St. Mary's as the Director of Athletics. I guess we'll start with step one.
Yep.
Maybe even step zero, the decision and the impetus for deciding, all right, I'm going to go from coaching to administration.
Yeah. It was certainly something that it wasn't something I'd been thinking about for a really long time.
Okay.
I've been a basketball coach and an administrator for 5 years at that point, in that dual capacity. And I think towards the end part of my time as a basketball coach, I started seeing the impact that I could have on more student athletes than the 15 that I had in my women's basketball program. I was taking on different roles around the campus. I was in charge of our SAC and really running a little things. And my last year, I initiated our first ever Title IX review of our athletic department, and my athletic director allowed me to lead that with our research department on campus. And in that moment, I thought, well, let's see what this looks like. And I applied for one job, and quite honestly, it was very compliance heavy. That job was, and I obviously had never been in compliance, but I told myself, well, I'm a basketball coach, so I have to know the rules. So I applied for it, and I got it. And so I made that transition from coaching, which was all I had known. I had been coaching for 13 years, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, to be honest. I was nervous. I didn't know what I was really getting into. But I also knew that if I didn't like it, I could always come back to basketball. It had been a home for me, and I knew I could get back there. But when I got into administration and really being able to connect with coaches, and I think having been a coach was really helpful for me in that space of understanding what that day-to-day looks like, what they're going through with their student athletes, what they need across campus, and really making those connections. So when I got to Susquehanna, I was really able to leverage those experiences that I had been having as a coach and as an administrator, and met some really great people. Still continue to talk with them now. It was three really incredible years working with all sports, working with over 600 student athletes there. But the funny part about that is that when I left St. Mary's, I had a really good conversation with our president, who's still our current president right now. And she said, will you answer my call if in 3 years? And I said, I mean, I'll always answer your call. And so I think that was pretty special. I ended up coming back to St. Mary's in 3 years as the athletic director. I had a really great relationship with our former athletic director, who we're actually inducting into the Hall of Fame this weekend. And the transition from coach, most of the coaches that I coached with then are still there now. I had a process in hiring half of them, so it wasn't awkward to be coming back in this role. I think they understood it. I supervised half of them as well, even as a coach. So I always say I'm fortunate that they allowed me to come back, that I left for 3 and I'm back. So this is my 11th year on the campus. And St. Mary's is a special place. I knew that when I was there before. It was the longest time I'd ever spent in an institution. And for me to come back, it's a beautiful place just in general. People like to say it's in the middle of nowhere. I say it's actually at the end because you can't go anywhere. You're just going to get in the water. You're not going anywhere unless you have a boat. But the people are amazing. And our student athletes are incredible. They're the best thing that we have going for us. And so to be able to be there and lead them for as long as they'll have me, it has been great.
You mentioned you've applied for one position at Susquehanna. Why was that the one position?
You know, I thought it very much aligned with the schools that I have a lot of interest in.
Okay. It's
a small liberal arts college. Central Pennsylvania, I went to school in Central Pennsylvania. So I feel comfortable in that space. Their athletic director at the time was Pam Samuelson, an incredible woman leader in her own right. And I knew that school. It wasn't necessarily the comfort part of the school, but it was a school that I knew not because of its school, but because of the schools that I had worked for. And so for me to be able to make that transition and look at it and say, I knew I was going to get a lot of opportunity out of that position. I was going to learn an area that I had not a ton of experience in. And quite honestly, if I wanted to go down the path of administration, I needed to get more experience in those areas. And when I got in it, I was able to do all the things. And I just thought being on a campus like that in a small community, I'm originally from Baltimore, so people always think it's weird that I live in these really small areas, but I feel a lot of comfort there, and it's like home. So that would be why I applied for that position. And I think it also was because I wasn't all in on leaving coaching. I was like, let's see how it goes. You know, if I get it, then I'll have to make the decision. If I don't get it, I'm going to continue working for whatever's next for me.
You mentioned that having the understanding of maybe the broad strokes of what that new environment would look like, while maybe some of the nuances you learned over your few years there.
Yep.
Why? So we talked about why the school, what the role. Compliance never strikes me as an easy job. And I imagine all the compliance people or people that have a compliance background are probably nodding their head right now. Why was that? Was that intentional to pick that, or was it more school and leadership fit?
It was more school and leadership fit.
Okay.
Quite honestly, I knew what compliance was, and I knew how large it was, but I didn't necessarily know what the role entailed until I got into it. But it was also wasn't easy because the reason it was an NCAA funded position, and the reason that they applied for that position is because they were going through. They were on probation because of a major violation that had happened out of their happened within the department or outside of the department. And so my job was to come in and make sure that people asked all the questions, whether they were in our department or outside of our department, so we never found ourselves in that position again. And so I knew I could do that. I knew I could find a level of comfort with coaches where they could come in and have conversations with me, and that felt very easy. The compliance part,
right.
Not so much. Luckily, we didn't. They asked a ton of questions, and I always say to people, especially me coming into that situation, pretty new, is that I'm not going to always have the answer, but I will find it for you. And so I told people, I was like, I will. I'm not going to give you an answer right now because I'm not going to lie to you. I want to go and find it. I want to know if I want to get you the right answer and not just an answer. And so I think our coaches really appreciated that. And I said, we're all learning here, so there's no bad question. But yeah, compliance. It's a big word, and the book's getting smaller though a little
Right.
bit. We're throwing some things out.
Yeah, I imagine the skill set and what you've learned from coaching was helpful in leading either through the fire or out of the fire, which may not be how a coach would think about the leadership skill set that they've gained over their tenure, but it's one of those where the skill set is not always is applicable to so many more circumstances than we are often aware of. So I want to transition. You mentioned your president. You are in the beginning process. She's announced she's retiring at the end of the year. How are you thinking about preparing for that transition and onboarding the next president?
Yeah, for sure. I think any leadership or presidential transitions are challenging, and quite honestly, I'm terrified. Not because I full trust in our institution and our board to be able to go through a really critical process for our institution and find the right leader for us, but President Jordan has been amazing for the institution. We've had so much growth under her leadership. We whether it's academics and athletics, we've really been able to hit every single mark. And she's one of those people who you step in the room and you already know how bright and brilliant she is. But she's personable and really just gets in tune with whoever it is that she's talking to. And to me, she's going to be a tough act to follow, to be honest. I think everybody feels that. Everybody's a little bit nervous, but, higher education is not easy right now.
Right.
And so making sure that we have the right leader in place at this time couldn't be more critical. And so being a part of as many listening sessions and conversations with people about the importance of what we do in athletics and how we can help continue the growth will be important as we move forward. We're also in the middle of our Middle States reaccreditation process as well. So there are a lot of things that are going on, but I think that it's good that these two things are actually aligning, because the fact of the matter is we're seeing where our gaps are as an institution for our students, and what we really need to provide them. We're really challenging ourselves to provide more mental health resources for our campus. And so all these things that are coming out of our Middle States accreditation process are things that are going to be helpful for us when we're bringing people in for our new president. So terrified, but I'm excited. I think, from an athletics perspective, we just want to do the best that we possibly do. We're obviously highly competitive people.
Of course.
And so my job is to whoever it is to come in is to show them what our value is and how our students continue to represent this institution in the best way on and off the campus. And I think that we have a pretty incredible 28% of the student population that really gets it. They understand why academics are important, but they also understand why co-curricular opportunities exist. And so that's the part that's really exciting.
Absolutely, the value add to the educational experience for sure. I want to finish on this topic. There may be more than one question, but you're recently, for this academic year, were named the third vice president for Nadia. What does it mean to you to be a part of kind of the rotation to be in the leadership role for the D3 athletic directors?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think our board over the last 2 years has really taken on trying to figure out what we need for Division III, and how can we get our athletic directors more involved with the division, because the voice is imperative to our growth, right? NCAA is going through a lot of transition right now. I think there's a lot of uncertainty about even Division I athletics, Division II athletics, and certainly Division III athletics, and where we're going to be able to find funding for our long term. How can we support ourselves without feeling like we're going to fall flat? This is a place where we provide the most opportunities for scholastic students, so we need to be able to position ourselves in a place that we can continue to thrive. And so being a part of the board is is critical to that. We have a voice. We talk within CAA leadership all the time, and so being third vice president means that in a few years, I'll have been able to learn from some really great people that are ahead of me. So right now, I'm really just trying to learn. We're going through a strategic plan for Nadia in ways so we can again position ourselves in a way for our membership that makes sense and people understand who we are and what we do and why we're doing it for the membership. So I think that's the most important part about it, and that's why I really enjoy being on it.
I'm curious, this might be my last question, but we'll see. The thought of leading and being a leader in a 430 member division versus maybe what's in the best interest of your campus. Those often may be aligned, but there might be times where they diverge.
Yep.
How do you think about the balance between that as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always times that you need to step outside of yourself and think more broadly. I don't find it very much different than what we do within our own institutions, right? I think there's a lot of times we can get siloed in just thinking about athletics as opposed to thinking about it broadly as what we're doing for our campus community. I see this very similar. I think we have to fight. I have to fight for what we need on our campus. We're a small state public liberal arts institution. There's not a lot of us out there, and so my voice to be able to amplify that in ways outside of my campus is huge. But I also know there's a lot of institutions that are different than mine. We're okay right now. We have a lot of small schools that are not.
Right.
And so to be able to think about those schools and what their needs are, we have a lot of underfunded institutions out there. How can we provide more data that's going to help them get the funding that they need to get the resources they need so those student athletes can have a better experience? And so I think that's the balance, right? Like when I'm on my campus, I'm fighting for what we need. I'm in those rooms. I'm having conversations. I'm talking with my staff. I'm talking with our students. I'm talking with our leadership. And then when I'm in these board meetings, we're talking to the NCAA. We're talking to them. We're trying to get surveys out to hear what's happening on campuses. I think in Division III, you run the gamut of the schools that are in there, and so it's important to have a touch on each one of those. And to be honest, I'm in a conference of 17 institutions, and of the 17 institutions, I would tell you that each one of us are incredibly different. So maybe a microcosm of what it's like to be on the board and working in this capacity.
Excellent. Crystal, thank you so much for joining me today. A lot of insights, a lot to think about as we're leading Division III forward.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.